My wife, a 31-year-old woman, firmly believes that I, a 35-year-old man, should have received a promotion by now, given that I've been working in the same position for the past 7 years. Her frustration began to surface after 5 years in this job, when she started making sarcastic remarks. She would often compare my situation to her friend's husband, who got a promotion after just 2 years, and her sister's fiancé, who secured a position after only 3 years at their respective jobs. Ironically, she's been working in retail for 9 years, but has never had the opportunity to move up in her career. I suspect that her constant need to one-up others plays a role in her expectations. For instance, if one of her friend's spouses buys them an expensive item, she expects me to follow suit, simply because others have done so. Unfortunately, we're all too aware of the challenging economic situation in the United States due to the significant increase in prices over the past years. While I do my best to make my wife feel special, there are times when her demands seem excessive, especially when we can't afford such extravagances. Her disappointment with me grew over the past 2 months. Her closest friend received a new car for her birthday from her husband, and my wife expected the same from me. I had to remind her that I was still paying off the last car I bought her. This led to her giving me the cold shoulder, and our communication became sporadic at best. We exchanged greetings when we crossed paths, but that was the extent of it. I slept in the guest room and refused to indulge her because, at this point, I felt she could buy her own car. She believed that giving me the silent treatment would compel me to meet her demands. But when that didn't happen, she stopped talking to me altogether. Then, last week, I came home early from work. I had informed her that I'd be coming home at this time from now on, although she didn't inquire why. I had been prepared to explain my reason if she had asked. Instead, she continued to ignore me. The following day, while wiping the kitchen counter, I noticed her phone near the toaster. It appeared that she had forgotten it while running errands. I was about to leave it there when her phone lit up with an incoming message. Glancing down, I saw that it was from her friend, who inquired if my wife was certain about her earlier response. To my shock, my wife's previous message stated that she was leaving me because I was losing my job, and she couldn't tolerate it any longer. She added that there was no reason for her to stay, and our marriage had become pointless in our lives. I must admit, I was deeply hurt by her words. I never considered our marriage pointless, that it seemed that my wife viewed it as a one-sided relationship, with her taking more than giving. Her assumption that I was losing my job simply because I mentioned coming home early was a typical reaction for her. She always made assumptions without asking questions, so I decided not to inform her about my recent promotion, which came with a substantial pay increase and reduced work hours, because I was now managing my own team. I preferred to remain silent and let her think what she wanted. 2 days after I stumbled upon her text messages, she came downstairs while I was preparing dinner, with 2 suitcases packed, and announced that she was going to stay with her closest friend for a while to sort things out. I inquired about her intentions, and she explained that she believed our marriage was no longer working, and she wasn't happy. I respected her decision to leave and continued with my evening. The next day, my first paycheck with the pay increase hit my account, and I was astounded by the amount of money I would now be earning. I contacted my good friend, her closest friend's husband, and suggested we go car shopping together. He picked me up, and we drove to the dealership. After choosing a car I liked, I drove away in my new vehicle. We had lunch together before parting ways to our respective homes. I suspected he might have mentioned my new car and the money I spent on it to his wife, or that my wife was present during the conversation. All of a sudden, my wife called my phone. I didn't answer the first call and let her call 2 more times before picking up on the 3rd ring. She asked if it was true that I had purchased an expensive new car, and I confirmed that I had. She then questioned how I could afford it after I had been laid off. I inquired when she thought I had been laid off, and she seemed perplexed because she had assumed I had lost my job. I explained that I could afford the car due to my recent promotion. After a moment of silence, she suddenly exclaimed her congratulations and suggested we celebrate that evening. Confused, I reminded her of her earlier statement about our marriage being pointless and her desire to leave. She stuttered, attempting to come up with excuses, but I assured her it was all right and that I was fine celebrating alone. When she insisted on seeing me, I hesitated, explaining that it didn't seem wise considering her earlier feelings about our marriage. I believed she should stand by her initial decision. In response, she called me heartless and accused me of never loving her. She burst into tears and abruptly hung up, leaving me wondering if I was wrong for my actions. Was I wrong to distance myself from her, especially considering her sudden interest in my life, seemingly sparked by my new car and promotion? It has been 2 days since my last post, and things have taken an unexpected turn. My wife has completely changed her demeanor, shifting from indifference to intense concern about my well-being. She has bombarded my phone with calls and texts, ranging from threats of divorce to accusations of infidelity. I found myself surprised at her sudden interest in my actions, considering her previous lack of concern. She expressed a desire to come home, but I stood my ground, reminding her that she was the one who chose to leave. I couldn't understand why she expected me to beg her to return. I firmly stated that I shouldn't have to fight for our marriage alone, as marriage is a partnership, and I didn't make those vows alone before the priests. I reminded her that she was the one who essentially declared our marriage was over and had reached its end, not me. I refused to stay in a marriage with someone who expressed such sentiments. I told her plainly that I wouldn't engage in conversations if all she intended to do was complain like a spoiled child. Of course, she didn't appreciate my bluntness and hung up on me. It's been a week and a half since the last update, and I'm seriously considering filing for divorce. Initially, I contemplated filing for separation, hoping to spare her from embarrassment, until she created a scene at my family dinner. I had invited her, giving her a chance to attend without informing my family about our living situation. I wanted to shield her from her recent inappropriate behavior and decisions. However, during the dinner, as we discussed various topics, I complimented my mom for her unwavering support for my dad, especially since he was currently using crutches due to a broken leg. My wife chose that moment to interject, expressing her desire for me to be as supportive as my parents were for each other. Fed up, I confronted her, asking if I was a bad husband simply because I didn't cater to her every whim or because I wasn't constantly pleading for her return. In front of my family, I revealed how she had been mistreating me, assuming I had lost my job without discussing it with me first. I shared how she had moved out, claiming our marriage was pointless and practically over. When my family questioned her, she tried to turn the situation around, suggesting she was trying to salvage our marriage. But I had been mistreating her ever since my promotion. I pointed out that she only wanted the marriage now because I was making significantly more money, and she wanted to enjoy the benefits. She began crying, portraying herself as the victim, and accused me of trying to leave her for a younger woman. My parents became upset, thinking I was pushing her out to make room for someone else due to my recent promotion. I chuckled and handed them my phone so they could see our text messages and understand the truth of the situation. Up until 2 months ago, she had been treating me horribly, speaking to me in a way that my sisters were ready to confront her about. When she tried to paint me as the villain in front of my parents, I was furious. That moment, I told her I was completely done with her. I reminded her about the marital agreement we had signed. I made it clear that since she had made the first move to dissolve the marriage by moving out and expressing her exhaustion with our relationship the following day, she was entitled to nothing. Despite her desperate pleas for another chance, I was ready for it to be over. I wanted to move on and find someone who valued me for who I am, not for my money. She was delusional for thinking she could leave me, try to guilt-trip me into taking her back, and then expect everything to be okay. I'm glad you're looking at this situation positively and choosing to move forward without her. It's evident that her effort only increased because you got a promotion. You deserve someone who appreciates you for who you are, not for your success. As for my own struggles, I've always found it challenging to pay attention and focus on things I find boring. Managing deadlines, waking up, and falling asleep have always been difficult for me, and my memory is incredibly weak. Somehow, I managed to get through high school and even secured a spot in my dream university, although I felt it was more due to luck than my efforts. I often skipped classes at the community college, using excuses to mask the fact that I was sleeping in. This behavior made me feel awful about myself, fearing that if anyone discovered my laziness, they would hate me and think I was a failure. My self-esteem took a severe hit, and I developed imposter syndrome, general anxiety disorder, and an eating disorder due to my self-loathing. When university started, it became even harder to maintain my grades. Despite my best efforts, I kept missing deadlines, struggled to pay attention in class, and found it nearly impossible to focus on my studies. I tried everything: attending learning skill classes, reading every self-help book, locking myself in my dorm room, but I still felt like I was falling short academically. I was at an all-time low mentally until I stumbled upon an article about ADHD that felt like it was narrating my life story. Every little symptom described seemed to fit me perfectly. This discovery gave me newfound hope that I could get help. Fortunately, I was still covered by my parents' insurance. I promptly consulted a neurologist, which cost me $50, a detail that might become significant later on. The neurologist confirmed it was a classic case of ADHD and also diagnosed a memory problem. He provided me with a comprehensive treatment plan, including medication. I felt an overwhelming sense of relief and validation. Yesterday, I took half a pill for the first time, and it was a transformative experience. It was as if someone had turned off a loud noise that I hadn't even realized was there. I'd never felt so focused and calm in my entire life. Excited, I called my family to share the news. However, my mom abruptly interrupted me, asking me to bring her some pills when I got home. My father chimed in, suggesting that my 16-year-old brother, who likely had a more severe case of ADHD than mine, should try them too, as he was struggling to maintain his grades. I was deeply uncomfortable with their request and suggested they consult a doctor themselves, since it wasn't expensive and the wait times weren't long. But they brushed it off, insisting that ADHD medication was common nowadays, with people obtaining them from friends. And if it worked so well for me, why wouldn't I want the same for them? They claimed I was being overly uptight and making a fuss out of nothing. I'm torn because I understand people often share these medications, but I'm worried about the legality and potential consequences. Additionally, I fear running out when I need them, which might sound selfish. I want to emphasize that my brother is completely unaware of this situation and is the sweetest young boy who would never pressure anyone for anything. I want to express my gratitude to everyone for their supportive comments. I wish I could respond to each one individually, but please know that I've read them all. Your positivity has genuinely made my day and helped me feel better about my situation. Thank you for your kindness. I want to clarify that I never seriously considered sharing the medication. My post was more about my conflicted feelings regarding their request. Under no circumstances should you give away your prescription meds. ADHD medications are controlled substances, and running out before the prescribed time could lead to suspicion of illegal activity. Selling them or sharing them with family members could get you into serious trouble. If you fear someone might steal them, consider using a lockbox. It's unwise to share prescription medications. Your family members should consult a doctor for their own diagnosis and treatments. Introducing new medications without supervision might lead to harmful interactions. A couple of months before my grandmother passed away, I drove down to see her with my dad. Despite my initial belief that she disliked me due to my past mistakes, she gave me her wedding ring among other things, mentioning that I was her light and always there for her without being asked. During my visit, I learned about my grandfather's infidelity, and I assumed she gave me the ring instead of leaving it for him because she wanted him to have someone after her passing. I facilitated a reconciliation, but after her death, my cousin asked me to return the ring to my grandfather. I refused, believing that if she intended him to have it, she would have left it for him. Am I in the wrong here? Morally, you're not at fault. It was a gift freely given. However, you might want to check the legalities in your area, as sometimes gifts given shortly before death can be contested as part of the inheritance. Be prepared for relatives to try to guilt you into giving it back. But remember, your grandmother's intentions matter, and it's not your responsibility to fulfill someone else's assumptions about her relationship with your grandfather.